The topic number one is I called it Tariffs of Doom. Is this the worst case scenario? So if you have followed the channel, if you have tuned into other channels, I don't know if you've talked about it, Jeff, on your channel. I don't think I saw a video of you talking about it.
Nope.
And I am somebody that I do not like to talk about politics, but politics keeps creeping in with this issue. And so, you know, basically it is what it is. And that's where we can just leave it at that. You know, and we really can't do much about it right now. But here's the thing. So I've learned a lot about tariffs in the last month. I didn't know a lot about it before, and I do not claim to be an expert at all about tariffs. But basically, tariffs is a fee, a tax that the country pays to get an item in, and obviously that tax goes to the country in order to receive your items. Okay, so basically, I don't know exactly what the percentages were prior to all this mess. And, you know, there are some people that think the tariffs are a good thing to try to get, you know, business back going again in the United States. Whether that happens or not, obviously, a lot of the idea is that factories will eventually be built and factories will produce things and we won't have to rely on other countries for their goods and services. However, what we're specifically talking about tonight is the collecting hobby. And basically what we're going to call, I mean, we can call these things toys. They kind of fall under a toy category, whether it is a $5 action figure at Walmart or a $2,000 Prime One Studio statue. These things are very expensive. We have talked ad nauseum here on the channel about the fact that prices are astronomical. Shipping has been astronomical for the most part. A lot of people have left the hobby because of the pricing, because of the weight, because of issues like XM Studios and communication and customer service issues with different companies. And there's been a lot of, just a lot of negativity that's creeped in the hobby. Unfortunately, the glory days are probably long gone. The quality is great. There is no question. The artistry is great. The talent is probably the best it's ever been. I think we can all agree on that. But unfortunately, the prices are a lot of money, and this has really become a very high-end collector hobby. There are still companies out there that are able to produce statues at a reasonable rate. I think of companies specifically, more of the North and South American companies. I think of like XM Studios, Sideshow, Tweeterhead, companies like that have tried to keep the prices a little bit lower than some of the Asian markets. Again, all of that is what it is. But when it comes to the tariff situation, basically it is a tariff war with China. And again, some people feel like the rates over the past has been unfair to certain countries, where other companies or other countries have taken advantage and all of that good stuff. So basically where we are right now is we were, as of midnight today, the president enacted a 104% tariff on China. Throughout the course of the day, Trump did end up backing off and saying that there was a 90-day reprieve for most countries, not China. But there was a reprieve where those countries like Canada and Mexico, it was back down to 10%, which is very doable. And I would assume those countries are very, very happy. But obviously, China was hit with that 104%. And as Chris and Logan says, yes, it did then go up today to 125%. Okay. So just to give people an idea of what that means. Okay. So I basically talked to some companies about this issue. I'm not going to name the companies because I just don't want to drag them into it. But basically, and this was data based on the 104. Okay, so I'm just going to go on that. So basically, a company, in order to get an item, it's called a commercial invoice. Okay, so let's say the invoice for the product coming in from China, okay, where the factories make this stuff, okay, most of them. It's like Prime One's a Japanese company. However, they manufacture in China. They get their stuff from China directly. Okay. So let's say that they had $100,000 worth of product. Okay. If the tariff is 104%, that means that they are going to be paying $104,000 on top of their container fee. Now, let's say the company that I talked to, their container fee was $20,000 just to get the container. That's how much they have to pay the container to fill their product up with and get it to the United States. So that means that in order to get $100,000 worth of merch to the United States, it will now cost that particular company $124,000 just to get it here. Okay. Now that is an insane amount of money. Now it's up to $125,000. So now it's $125,000, let's say, on the 100,000. And 100,000 is actually lightweight from what I was told. Like, that's lightweight numbers. Okay. It's a lot of money to me, but $100,000. So then you have 125,000 plus the container fee. So that really begs the question then. Yeah, Theodore says, like, yikes. Okay. That then brings the question, like, who's going to pay that? Okay. Initially last week, we got this graphic right here. This is what we got. And this was before we kind of knew what the tariffs were going to be. So some of these have changed. Japan was hit with the 24%. And again, these are the companies that were kind of hit with that 24%. South Korea, 25%. Blitzway, J&D Studios, Hong Kong. The big one right there is Hot Toys, obviously. Canada's Pure Arts. China, you can see a plethora of companies, and not just those companies, but that's where stuff is made. But that's where have their presence. USA has Hasbro, Mattel, McFarlane Toys, Mondo, NECA, Pure Arts, Sideshow, Super 7, and so on. Okay, so that was like the initial tariffs. Now, again, a lot of those tariffs have dropped down depending on if the country is willing to negotiate, which is, obviously a good thing. But obviously, most of our stuff, most of our toys, they come from China. And that's, Mattel toys, that is action figures, that is all kinds of stuff. I mean, that's not just that, but it's like car parts and microchips and all kinds of things to power technology. So obviously, we're going to focus here on the channel of just primarily the collecting stuff. Okay, the toys, the high-end collectibles, and that sort of thing. Okay. We've also heard from companies like this. This is from Comic Concepts. It says, "Dear collectors, as many of you know, there is currently a significant tariff situation impacting imported goods, particularly those from China, which has led to increased costs. As we are currently absorbing most of the cost, there may come a time where we will need to pass on a small percentage to our customers. We will keep everyone updated as the situation progresses. This is a new challenge, not only for us, but for the industry as a whole. While we've been absorbing these costs thus far, the recent tariff announcements have prompted us to engage in discussions with our partners and manufacturers to find a viable solution. We kindly ask your patience as we navigate this issue." So again, these type of comments are trickling in from companies like Comic Concepts. Obviously, these are third-party retailers such as like Spec Fiction and some of these companies. We have also heard from companies like from J&D. And Matt, you were saying that, I think you read that earlier. Do you want to tell the people what you kind of heard from J&D on that side of things?
J&D, I watched their video. He came out with I guess he's the president or so of J&D, saying basically they're going to lower their cost, and so they can eat the tariff. They'll pay for the tariff. So just stupid numbers here. If it was a $2,000 statue, they might lower the cost to, let's just say, $1,600 or whatever it is, and then they're going to add on the tariff. So they say they're going to do that for their customers and fans, and they're going to, kind of same thing, kind of like, hey, we don't know how long this is going to go on, etc. But that they got out in front of it and wanted to address, because everybody, on Facebook and Instagram, whatever, who's going to pay the tariff? Who's going to pay the tariff? Well, J&D basically said they're going to lower their costs and then add on the tariff cost to it. So, yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, That is what companies are saying. Obviously, they're going to want to try to get ahead of this. What I'm most concerned about is how long can that be sustained? Obviously, consumers want to hear that from companies. They don't want to hear, oh, we're going to, sustain the cost for a little while. It's one of those things where, again, like Chester says, Statue Brothers said they are protected from additional tariffs. Let's see what else. What other comment did I want to see? Anyway, that's what companies are saying right now.
Can I say something real quick?
Say that again.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes, you may. Absolutely.
So far, you seem to be proceeding from the assumption that there's going to be something to ship. And I don't know if you guys saw that post from Eric Sosa that I shared today in my group.
It was this one right here.
Yeah. So if American companies are halting production, there's nothing to ship.
And that's really kind of where I wanted to. I'm really glad you said that, because that's kind of where I wanted to kind of segue into. I've had a number of conversations. Again, I don't want to name names, but I've had a number of conversations off camera this week. There's a lot of concern. This definitely affects the companies right now more than the consumer, but it will eventually affect the consumer. Yeah. I have heard most companies, again, these are just companies that I've heard from, that there will be a pause. So stuff that they were going to put up for pre-order soon, they will not be. They will not be putting things up for pre-order in the foreseeable future. Now, I was told that things up until midnight this morning, if things were already on the water, if things were already on their way here before that time, that those items were fine.
Yep.
However, everything now from today on, again, this is April 9th, depending on when you're watching this. From now on, it will incur that 125,000 or 125%. So I think absolutely there'll be a major pause. Now, I don't know if that will be from overseas companies as much, because they a lot of times will sell to their own region, like the Asian collectors will buy from the Asian companies and that sort of thing. They won't have to worry about that at all. But if you want to buy a Prime 1 statue, let's say, I don't think we're going to be able to get that in unless it's already on the boat, which makes me a little bit nervous about, like, I don't know how that's going to affect my tactical throne or my Killer Croc versus Batman.
Right.
Is there going to be fees that I'm going to have to pay? I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work. I ordered directly from Prime 1. If it's a company, like, let's say you order through Sideshow. So is Sideshow going to take 125% hit on stuff that they've ordered already? I don't see how they're going to be able to do that. They might be able to for a little while. Smaller companies, like a Tweeterhead, they're not going to be able to take that. Nope. There's no way in the world. They will not survive.
And they're also not going to be able to build a factory in the U.S. and make them here.
And that's another big giant argument. And we've kind of said that over the years, like, hey, why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? Mm-hmm. Well, so here's another example. So Apple had a deal today where they came out with an article, okay, talking about iPhones. So let's say that they started making iPhones in the United States, okay? It would cost per iPhone, it would cost $3,500. And that's before markup.
Yep.
Okay. So that's $3,500 to make it in the United States. Okay. The infrastructure is not here yet. It might take another 2 years to build the factories and get stuff up and running. Would we be able to make our own chips? We're going to have to get our own chips from somebody, or, figure out a deal with that. So that's a mess in itself. Now, when it comes to statues, the statues, the factories overseas, from everybody that I've been told, are top-notch artists, incredibly skilled. They have a great living wage. They're taken care of, but their labor is incredibly less than what it would be here.
Yep.
A statue to be made in the United States, if by God a factory was made here, it would be 4 to 5 to 6 times what it costs now for a statue. So you guys do the math. If you're already upset about a $2,000 statue, what's it going to be if it's made in the United States?
If it's a $10,000 statue,
it's not feasible. It is not sustainable. It will not happen. No. It will not happen. You can mark my words. Companies will just flat out go bankrupt. They'll leave. They will not go to that route, which is sad. And it's very scary to me. But I think for the time being, there will be a pause. Now, that also means that China is going to have this possible giant surplus of product that they're going to have to sit on until things change, until the tariffs go down, if they will. Now, all the news I read today is like, well, China and the United States are not going to buck. They're not going to back down. How long will this take? Again, where are you guys at right now whenever you hear all of this news? And I hate to be the doom and gloom guy today, but it is just really bad news. Where do you guys weigh in on what this situation means for the hobby right now?
I'll go first if you want me to, Chris.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. And by no means, my views are my views. So with respect to people in the chat, we're trying to respect everybody and make it not political. But you got two guys that are playing poker in front of the stage of the world right now. And, with respect, nobody wants to be caught bluffing, and I think they both believe they're doing the best they both want to do the best for their country and their people. So that being said, we're in the standoff and who's going to fold first, type thing like that. Now, when we put everything into perspective, we all like painted rock on this channel. Okay, it is what it is. It's painted rock. Okay. I think yes, there will be a halt. So let's just take Prime 1, for example. Let's say you got notification, hey, so-and-so is going to be shipping soon. Well, I think they're going to hold off on that now. I think they're going to send another email out saying, hey, we're waiting until we see what goes on with this tariff situation. Hey, your statue is still here, but we're not going to ship it as planned, type thing like that. What I'm kind of like seeing, as we watch YouTube or we watch, Facebook or whatever, people saying, well, Sideshow's going to go out of business, so-and-so is going to go out of business. No, they're not. They're just going to adjust, just like they did with, COVID, when the COVID times were there, they just have to adjust. Because with respect to Sideshow, I think they're one of the well-run companies out there. I can honestly say that. I think they're just going to adjust and maybe not sell as much, or, hey, this was supposed to go, be delivered this month, but we don't want you to pay that 125% tariff or whatever, type thing like that. So we're going to sit on it for a while. But what I would, people like freaking out, well, tariffs, well, as we were talking backstage, whatever we PO today, at best, it's going to be a year and a half until it's done. So I'm sorry, the tariffs will be gone in a year and a half. I think if you had to ask
the stuff we'd PO'd a year ago.
yeah. I mean, with respect, and with respect, but to my point, Jeff, it's like, well, let's just say you got an email. Let's say a month ago saying, hey, we're preparing this thing to ship, but now with the tariff situation, they might say, well, we're not going to ship it now. We're going to wait and see what goes on with this tariff situation. So Jeff doesn't have to pay the 125 or, whatever extra fee, it is going to be. But I just think a lot of people are freaking out. Oh, well, the statue industry is dead. No, it's not dead. They're going to adjust. And like prime example, they might, hey, we're going to pause your shipment that was scheduled, Chris. We're going to pause it, But guess what? The people over in China that ordered the same statue or wherever, they're going to get theirs because they're right there. They don't have to pay the tariffs and all that. So if you PO something today, people, it's going to be a year and a half, maybe 2 years before you get it anyway. The tariffs will be gone. Right now, we're in a standoff, and it is what it is. Not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong, but we're just in a standoff.
I think you bring up a lot of good points. It kind of goes back to our friend Thor Gunnarsson. He always says, you have to be patient. And I think this is definitely going to be a waiting game. But again, like I don't think anybody's going to do a pre-order. I just don't think that, that's even going to be a thing until something changes. There might be companies like, again, Prime One or somebody like, they put up something today. They put up that new Morgan. Beautiful statue, by the way. And that's one of those things where I think that there will still be companies. I think that there'll be a lot of companies very leery. I think especially companies that deal in the United States are like Jeff said, they're definitely going to pause. They're not going to be doing any sort of production, which, again, I can't imagine. So like if China's not making any money and they have factories full of stuff that they can't sell, the factory's not going to be making any money. So that's going to have a negative effect on them at some point also. It's going to hurt everybody until something changes.
Because Americans are, one of the highest populations that consume Chinese products. So trust me, they're going to feel it, and they're going to be on their leader to be, hey, you need to go talk to the USA and let's get this over with. I got stuff building up in a warehouse that's just basically sitting inventory that I can't put in my bank. It's a negative on me right now.
I'm less optimistic. To get a little bit political,
I was gonna say, I mean, it's hard not to with this topic.
Well, if you read what Trump's current economic advisors believe, it's necessary for the U.S. to decouple our economy from China's. That's their goal. So, yes, while companies might yell and scream in China, hey, we've got all this inventory, that doesn't matter to the U.S. administration, who's making a conscious effort to separate the two countries economically. That may benefit us in the long run. I don't know. I won't comment about that. But it makes me less optimistic that they're going to come to an agreement where those tariffs come down anytime in the near future. It would take our Congress, who was supposed to control tariffs, by the way, it would take 2/3 of our Congress to overrule him, take back that control, and put a pause on any tariffs. They have the ability to put a pause on tariffs. I think it's for 6 months, but they have to want to do that.
Right.
So, yeah. And let me give you an example outside of the hobby. My sister works for a clothing manufacturer. They currently have millions of dollars of clothing being manufactured in China. They can't pay the tariff. They can't build a factory here. They have this is a multi-million-dollar company. They have no idea what they're going to do. They're at a complete standstill. So this is a far-reaching problem across the entire economy. And I don't know. The statue hobby will continue, but I think it will change. I think some companies will go away and some will remain. I hope that collectors will start looking back at stuff that's already come out for their collections, then forward, maybe. And I do slightly worry that this is going to greatly expand the ability of custom statue makers to succeed. I say that with 2 custom statues over my shoulder. Reason being, the tariffs are not on the retail cost of the item. They are on the declared value of the shipment coming in. And a custom producer will put any declared value you want on your statue ordered from them. So there could be a dramatically smaller tariff on a custom statue than on a licensed statue. So those are the many things are running through my head today.
I think those are all amazing points. In terms of, whether it's customs or whether people are just, like somebody said earlier, like there might be a giant eBay boom, like people selling, buying, because now if you can't buy from a company that you want to buy from, well, maybe you can buy from another retailer. Maybe you can take a look at that statue that you've kind of wondered about for a while. It's already amazing.
Yeah.
We talked about like just, enjoying what you already have. And that's what I think a lot of us are going to have to do for a little while, which is something we should be doing anyway.
Yeah.
Brendan Riley says, if companies like Sideshow pay through the nose now, they'll need to raise prices to recoup that cost later, meaning new pre-order products from this point on will be priced higher, and rarely do they come down. So number one, I don't think they're going to do pre-orders, but if they did, yes, they would absolutely have to increase the price. I also think that they are going to have to renegotiate with some of their as a distributor. I think they're going to have to renegotiate with their clients to try to recoup some of that. I've also heard rumblings. I've heard rumblings that some companies might actually end up asking customers that have already purchased an item to pay more for that item to get it.
No, thank
Now,
you.
I think that what's going to happen is people will just flat out cancel. And obviously that is a big fear, I would think, for the companies as well, to have mass cancellations.
Yep.
And that's again a very scary thought for the company, and the company can't withstand that. Obviously, some companies have really good return policies, some do not have as good. Some it's more difficult to get returns. So I don't know exactly how that'll all work, but I've heard rumblings that might be happening, and I don't think that will go well. Now there might be a company or a person out there that says, "Well, I'd pay 10% more if it meant I guaranteed to get the item." But there also might be one of those things where I'm sorry, we're just we have a lot of stuff that hasn't started production yet that you've pre-ordered that we're going to have to cancel. It's not going to be produced. I think that's going to happen as well. And so that does stink. But if somebody says, well, if everybody pays a little bit more, then maybe we'll get it produced. I don't know how people would react to that. How would you guys react to that?
I'm fine with them making that offer as long as I have the option of a full refund if I don't want to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Billy, we haven't heard from you yet. Where do you stand on all this stuff?
We're in trouble. And I don't mean as a country. I mean as a statue community. You have to remember, at the end of the day, these things are luxury items. You know what I'm saying? They're not necessities. If you tell me that, we have a tariff on Canada to import lumber, well, we have our own trees here. Okay, we could work around that. And it's a necessary thing to build houses and this and that. These statues are, I don't even know if many people outside the hobby know that this is a thing. So if they're not going to put anything up on pre-order, if they're going to hold off on that, what are they going to have all their workers doing? Just sitting around twiddling their thumbs and not get paid? So if they're not putting anything up, nothing's being produced, what happens? Like what do they do? They're gonna, to understand what I'm saying, like the factory's not doing anything. I'm guessing there's rent to be paid for that factory. They have cost over there. If they're not bringing in any money, they can't pay their employees. People start getting let go. They're not going to be able to pay their rent for their factories. They're definitely not bringing in any new materials, but who cares, because they're not putting anything up for pre-order and production anyway. I see this hobby going, it's not going away, but it just might go in a more underground route. If you know somebody who dabbles in all the things art, who can, no, I'm being dead serious, because me and Eric talked about this today. Someone who has the ability to 3D print something and assemble it, fill it, sculpt it, paint it, and there you go. You might see more of that, where people become more creative. And I remember years ago, and if anybody's a sneakerhead out there, they know that when a Jordan retro would get released, you'd have people lined up at the malls, camped out for a whole day. And when you got up there, people would buy 4 or 5 pairs. And then the people in the back of the line, they wouldn't get a pair, and they camped out all this time. So they went to a lotto system, and you would basically go pick up a lottery ticket, and then you get a phone call if you got chosen. And so basically the sneakers became harder to get. So what did people do? They started going on eBay and Facebook marketplaces. They bought old sneakers and they restored them. They would put new souls on them, give them different paint jobs, and then either keep them, sell them, do whatever they want. But they basically got creative with their hobby, because to buy it brand new retail became too hard. I could see the same thing happening. Somebody mentioned it before about eBay having an uptick. Yeah, if you wanted to get that LBS Joker and he was going to be the Joker in your collection, okay, maybe you don't want to go that route because of the situation. I'll hit eBay and see if I can find the Permejo Joker, and that'll be my Joker in my collection. Or I'll go see if I can get the Say Cheese. Everybody knows that one's great, right?
Yep.
So, and so I could see that happening, or I could see people making their own statues, but you may not get that new statue smell that we all love, but,
which is cancerous, by the way.
I heard.
Yeah.
So I'm probably doomed, but yeah, I other things, chips for iPhones, car parts, all these things are going to be more on the essential list than painted rock. It's important to us, but at the end of the day, I don't think, either they don't care that this is our hobby. They really don't. So.
Yeah, they're not thinking about collectors with the stuff. They're thinking of big major things. I mean, obviously, again, they want factories built in the United States. They want stuff made here, and I get
there's
that.
negotiating being done. There's negotiating being done, but we're not allies with them. So, I mean, don't think that these two countries are going to get to the table anytime soon.
And that's the thing is, like, I like Matt's optimism. I tend to agree with what Jeff and Billy just said about the fact that I think that hopefully something will happen. I'm always somebody that likes to be optimistic, but at the same time, these are two really strong butt-headed guys that are going to, fight tooth and nail. And I think at best, this will last at least 6 months. And in that 6 month time, I think about, and again, this affects at least the United States in my mind, like, think about stuff on the shelves. Like, there's not going to be toys at Christmas. There's not going to be electronics in the stores. Like, there might be some, but if a majority of this stuff comes from there, it's just going to be really interesting, because I know there's a lot of product right now. And again, I've been told this, there's a lot of product right now that's going to be out there for, things coming out this summer that are already made that are not going to get here. They're not going to be on the shelves for those big summer movies. They're not going to have merchandise for that stuff because those toys are going to be held up over there.
You mentioned Christmas. I just read today, this is the time of year when Walmart and Target orders for Christmas.
Not now. Yeah, they're not now.
Right.
That's insane.
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're not going to have that stuff on the shelves unless something changes. I mean, maybe Matt's right, and maybe this lasts a week or two, and they figure out that this is awful for everybody or whatever. And again, that's hopeful.
So, but Chris, you have to understand also is that even if, and I hope Matt is right about that, and
sure,
it's not gonna disappear altogether. There will be an uptick in price. So then we cry about when FedEx and UPS raise their rates. So there will be for a 1/3 statue, it's not going to be the same as it was 2 or 3 months ago. So people are going to start to get to that point, which they already are. Is it really worth it? How bad do I really want that thing? So that right there is people. It's going to weigh more on most people that are going to be like, hey, I might want it for $3,000. Do I really want it for $4,200, $45? It's going to be ridiculous. These are not necessities. These are luxuries.
Right. Absolutely. And some people in the chat are saying, well, this is only affecting America. It's not going to affect anybody else. That is not true, because we're not talking just about statues here. We're talking about global products coming into countries, whether it's stuff coming into here or us sending us stuff over there. And yes, like let's say China isn't sending their Prime 1 anime statues to us. That might not hurt them very much. They're going to be able to still make their money. But what about a company like Hasbro or somebody that's sending over Superman action figures? Are people in Asia buying a whole bunch of Superman action figures for the big movie this summer? Probably not. So there are trickle down domino effects that, yes, it might hurt our country first, but then it will eventually hurt them as well, and it's going to hurt their workers and their people in their factories, just like it was said earlier. But it's electronics, it's steel, it's parts, it's microchips. It's not just collectibles that we're talking about. Again, we're just focusing on that for us, but the collectible market isn't just high-end statues. There's a lot of stuff that is shipped both ways, mostly from China to here, which again I think will affect again the shelves for the time being. So it might be, like somebody said, it might be a good idea to get your Christmas presents now, because who knows what it'll be like in 6 months. And again, hopefully, like Matt said, hopefully this will all be a big wash by, we've made the same deal. Like, we were freaked out about the port strikes, and it could last, months and months and months, and it lasted a week. Hopefully that's the case. But again, this is a very, very big deal with billions and trillions and gazillions of dollars at play. And I can't imagine the countries wanting this to last for very long. Yes, this is a power play. It's a trade war going on right now. But just like today, I didn't expect them to back off for 90 days. I think a lot of people didn't. The president even said 2 days ago that he wouldn't back off. But he was asked today, and they said, well, it's like, well, if the situation arises and people are willing to sit at the table, great. That's the whole point of this, to negotiate fair trade. But again, for somebody to come out and say, well, we're going to get you at 125 now, it's throwing fire on it, right?
So that email from Big Bad Toy Store that someone mentioned in the chat says they'll be raising prices on new and existing purchase order or pre-orders.
Jesus. See?
So that's again, I was right. Wow. This is a problem, because again, people will just flat out cancel them. They might lose their deposit. And I don't know how big.
But why should you? But why should you lose your deposit? Let's say that your deposit's 10% of your total, right? So if I gave you 10% of what the total cost was when I purchased it, now you decide to raise it. How could you? That's like changing the game in the ninth inning. Like, you just can't do that. Like, I purchased it, let's say at $2,000. You just can't raise the price on me. And then if I want to cancel, just keep my deposit.
And that's the thing, is it's sad because it's not Big Bad Toy Store's fault.
No,
it's not the consumer's
fault. Their fault.
All right, so that's not their fault. But if I say, like Jeff said, I should have the option to cancel and get my deposit back, that would be their fault if they don't want to do that.
Yeah. Again, it's going to get ugly. And that's the thing I don't want, because if it gets ugly and the companies start saying, hey, we need more money, and people are like, well, F you, I'm not going to pay more money. I agreed to pay what you initially said.
That's it.
I agreed to your deposit. I agreed to your terms. Then if they go against that, now again, it's not the third party retailer's fault, but they cannot take that hit and survive. You will not get your statue. You'll get your refund, but you will not get your product, because they're going to go under.
That's the problem. That's why the hobby in that aspect is in trouble. Like what you just said right there. So it's like, well, you won't get your statue. Okay. If people don't get statues, then how does the hobby survive? There's no new stuff coming in. But you just can't put a deposit on something that you were quoted at a certain price, and then all of a sudden that changes, and then you're not giving me the option of backing off of it. Like, hey, that's not what I agreed to. And, it just doesn't work that way. And so this is a huge problem if it goes on for a significant amount of time.
I do like what you said, Jeff, earlier. You said that give me that option at least. Mm-hmm. If I want to pay more and keep that pre-order and guarantee that it's going to come in, bingo, good. Yeah. But I also think you should have the option to cancel, which again is it's going to destroy them. It's going to destroy the companies.
Companies won't be able to give those refunds. They won't have that money in hand.
They might not. And then what happens? What do they file for bankruptcy at that point, right?
Yep.
Chapter 11?
Jesus.
Well, let me ask this. Let's just say we get an email from Prime One, because me and Chris have got statues with Prime One. Let's just say, hey, It arrived. It's in the U.S., but this tariff situation is the situation. Hey, we're willing to split it with you. Let's just for just stupid numbers. Let's just say it's $400. Hey, Chris, you pay $200. We're gonna pay $200. Or I would be fine with that. I would be fine with, hey, you know what? Okay, hey, that's 50-50, you know what I'm saying, type thing like that. Would you be okay with that, Chris? You think?
I think so. I mean, if it meant that I was going to get the product, it would really just depend on how much it is.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But okay, so again, in my opinion, I have no proof to prove this, but I think that Prime One for years has been padding shipping.
Right. So
I don't think it costs that much.
How would you know that they're splitting it with you? Are you going to get some kind of document that says, okay, it was $400, let's just say, and we're going to pay $200 and you pay $200. How do you know you're not just paying the whole thing and they're just telling you that? I mean, like Chris just said, we don't know that he doesn't have proof of it, but we have a feeling they've been padding the shipping for years. Well, if they can pad the shipping, how come they just can't hide tariff cost?
Yeah, you're right. And that's the thing is, again, you take a company like J&D, you mentioned them earlier. They said that they were going to reduce their costs.
It might just be bringing it down to earth.
But that's the thing is, they kind of threw themselves under the bus because
overcharging.
We're already overcharging you. Yeah. Now we're going to charge you a more fair rate, which is what they should have been freaking doing in the first place. So yes, you might see some of that, but again, how long is that sustainable? Again, it's just going to be subjective. It's going to come down to the individual. But the problem is, and again, some of the people I talked to this week, they said this could literally not have come at the worst time. Mm-hmm. Because the hobby was already struggling. It wasn't dead. And I agree with you guys. I don't think it will be dead at this point. But I do think it just happened at the absolute worst time that it could happen.
And let's go by what Jeff says, like Walmart and all these big retailers are buying now for Christmas. Let's go by that, which I totally believe, number one, You got to think China's feeling the pressure like, look, okay, the Americans, they spend X amount, I know it's a lot, come Christmas with our products. You got to know that there's got to be talks about that, going on, like, hey, factories calling him and emailing him, their leader, hey, this is our Christmas order. This is where we actually give our employees bonuses or whatever. You got to get this stuff, you got to go sit at the table.
Keep in mind, Matt, we're not talking about a democracy.
Oh, I know. I know. It's
government might not give a damn whether it's hurting one companies or not.
But I think, even though it's not a democracy over there, I think all of his factories sitting on product and all that getting backed up because America does buy a lot of Chinese products. At some point, he's gonna have to go sit at the table. You know what I'm saying? Type thing.
It will hurt eventually.
Yep.
I mean, there is no question. Again, a lot of people are just
they're going to be in a rush to go sit at the table to negotiate for a statue company. You're not exactly,
No, I'm not. I'm
producing an item
statues.
that's going to cure cancer or something. It's just they're
just
like,
in general.
It'll have to be a more broad thing as far as everything goes. I don't think anyone's in China is really going to care that a toy company went out of business.
But if you think about if everything that they're making and sending to us is not coming here.
Oh
yeah, they definitely have.
Let's just say 100%. Let's perfect world. 100% was not coming into the United States, which is what they want. At least the government wants. There's no way they could sustain that because we do buy so much from them, or they're just gonna have to get used to making a lot less. But that's not gonna happen either, because at the end of the day, money rules the world, whether we like it or not.
I don't know the details of it, but I imagine there are a lot of Chinese factories that are very busy creating products for the U.S. and shutting out the opportunity for other countries to have products made in those Chinese factories it's possible they could just replace these orders from the USA with orders from other countries and keep those factories going.
It's possible.
Yep.
It's possible. But again, I don't, when it comes to like statue collecting, I don't know how many other countries are buying.
No, it's not, I'm talking in general, but Chris, you have probably talked to statue companies who have complained that Sideshow steals all the good factories.
Yeah.
I've heard that. So obviously there is sometimes an opportunity like this where the big kahuna isn't cooperating. You're not producing for them. So you go for smaller folks. You're still bringing in money. You might even be making more money because the USA has made these awesome deals with you that will take this enormous amount of product, but you got to cut the price down for us.
Yep.
They can make more money than less.
What do you guys think? Sideshow is also a distributor, like for Iron Studios, Prime One, all kind of stuff that I don't even know. So how do you think that they don't just make their own stuff? How do you think it affects that?
That's what I said earlier. I think they're going to renegotiate terms with those companies.
When we're talking about Chad, as far as putting his stuff on there, they're taking a big chunk.
Yeah, Sideshow's taking they take a large chunk. I've heard around 50%, which is a large amount. But then if they say, well, now we're going to have to take 70% and renegotiate to that, just so Sideshow survives, and just so the company survives, but can the smaller company like a Tweeterhead or a PCS or something like that, can they survive with that? And the answer to me is like, nope.
30% of your own product?
No.
Come on.
I mean, they have to have a certain amount of profit margin to be successful, right? I mean, obviously, it doesn't cost them as much to make a statue as what they charge. So there is wiggle room there. But if it gets down to a certain percentage, I just don't know how the smaller companies can survive. And if those companies can't do that, if they can't renegotiate, and again, I don't know if that's what's going to happen or not. I'm just guessing here. But if they can't do that, then Sideshow is going to lose a ton of companies that they work with. I don't know. It's just a mess.
I feel bad for a Tweeterhead because just using that Superman bust and, as great as it is, it was also great because of the value that you got. It was like, wow, this was $300 and it was so great. If he has to up that and the value takes a hit, do people still want to go that route?
That's the thing. Okay, so let's take a look at that Superman. $300. Let's say Sideshow didn't distribute that bust. They don't do the bust. Tweeterhead only does the bust.
Yep.
So that's a good news for Chad, let's say. So let's say that Sideshow did, though, that means that Sideshow would take 50% or whatever they get. And so that leaves 150. And let's say it cost Chad $100 to make it. I don't know. That means a $50 product margin on each statue. Okay. So again, that's not a lot of profit margin. So yes, will a Superman that's $300 still be able to be a $300 Superman? Hell no.
Nope.
It's gonna be a $1,000 statue.
Yeah.
Right.
Mark my words that would be a $1,000 statue.
So who's gonna want to buy a bust where at $1,000?
Nobody.
The value's not there anymore. So he's gonna have a hard time pushing those. So where do you go? I mean, I guess maybe if we get to a point where the bust is $1,000 because the 1/3 is $4,000, then
it's just not going to happen.
Right.
He can try. PCS can try. Iron Studios can try.
Somebody said, "Well, we don't have painters in America." Yeah, we certainly do have talented painters in America. I'm looking at one right there. But you know something? I don't know how much they make over there. But people over here are going to want a whole lot more than they're getting over there.
That's so, again, from what I've heard.
Not happening. No, statues will not be made in America. It's not happening.
Just to be produced, just to have artists that paint it, that are professionals. The cost would be 4 to 5 times more.
Maybe more.
Again, I'm just spitballing here. But I know again, with the people that I've talked to, it's just not good. And I'm really proud of the companies with the idea of them pausing. I think pausing is a very smart idea.
Mm-hmm.
and wait till there's calmer waters. Does that suck that maybe I might not get to pre-order my Man Bat this year? Yep. But I'm okay with that if it means that eventually they'll put it up for pre-order.
Yep.
What I'm worried about is that they'll end up canceling stuff like that because they just won't be able to produce it. And that sucks. But again, that does go back to what a lot of people have said tonight is that, yes, we, at this point, a lot of us here in this community, we're very, very lucky to have the collections we have. When I look behind all of you gentlemen and see art on the walls and I see statues and I see people posting in Facebook, we're very blessed to have what we have. And that is an opportunity for us to be thankful for what we have and enjoy with what we have. At the same time, I am concerned with collectors being able to get their money for things that they have already pre-ordered. I would be worried about pre-ordering right now. I would be against it. That is my advice right now. That sucks because guess what? If you're not pre-ordering, is that helping the statue companies out? Nope. But I am worried that people are going to lose money. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
It's a legitimate concern, especially from the smaller companies.
Yep.
So hold on. So Chris, you got Tactical Throne and Croc coming.
Yes.
Matt, yours has already shipped out the door.
Be
right?
here Friday.
Okay, so all right, so his is already with FedEx or UPS, right?
FedEx.
Okay, and you didn't get any. Hey, this is going to cost you. Chris, your tracking hasn't updated yet. Like it's at the port.
So neither one. So like I ordered my Tactical Throne later. Matt and I both think that ours are both on the same cargo ship somehow.
Yep.
But mine hasn't updated yet. I got tracking finally today. When did you get tracking for your Killer Croc? Was it like a week or two ago?
No, it was actually, when you
the same day.
Group today. Yep, same day. Yeah.
So his is freaking arriving on Tuesday.
But Chris, what does yours just says a label has been made.
Label's been created and it's like Chino, California or whatever.
It hasn't been scanned at the port.
Correct.
The tariffs hit when they hit the customs border.
Correct.
Right.
Mine is not.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
Mine hasn't shipped yet, or it's shipped, but it hasn't arrived in the United States yet.
My Delano Tactical Throne is in Texas right now. 3 boxes.
Okay, so yours is already. You're good with that one.
Yeah, his is already in FedEx's possession. Yep. So he's going to have
FedEx's possession. It's in their facility in Texas.
And mine's on a boat somewhere.
Yeah.
Or it could just be sitting in a container at the port. They just haven't opened the container yet.
Imagine if Matt got away with scot-free, but Chris gets hit with 125% increase in price.
That's what I'm trying to figure out. Yeah,
there will be a show about that.
Yeah, there's going to be a show about that. I'm going to be freaking losing my top.
All I keep thinking as I'm listening to you guys talk is you're worried about paying these prices now. We should have been worrying about paying these prices 3 years ago when the prices skyrocketed since COVID. And it's like, I don't know, something needs to change. It's getting chaotic.
Right, but you know how many people got into the statue game during COVID because they were just home buying stuff?
Possibly, I don't know the numbers. I know COVID slowed down a lot of production, but
it wasn't like things were being made, but whatever was in the warehouse and in stock already, people were buying stuff.
Yeah, it's tough to say. I don't know. I like to try to stay optimistic and see what the bigger picture is. Like Matt said, we're in the middle of negotiations. See what happens. Personally, I'm a person that doesn't like to be dependent on other countries. I think our country has been way too dependent on other countries. Not just this week, going back decades. So, the fact to bring, I don't think it would be possible to build factories that quick and even produce statues. I mean, statues are like Billy said, it's a luxury. Statues, this is bigger than statues. This is like the future of our country, and just it's not about the statues, but I don't know. I would think there's a bigger play and plan here, or I should say plan and play here, other than just the negotiations. Otherwise, it would take too long to build anything in factories right now. You're looking at like a few years just to even build the factories to do anything like that. So I just don't see it being done that quickly.
It's just not a solution anyway. It just Even
It's
if you
not.
get the factory built, like it's going to be at that far escalated price, much higher price.
Yeah, 4 to 5 at least times the price that they are right now, which are already overinflated. Vengeance, I saw your question. I put it up on the screen. I don't know. I have no idea. And I don't know if Tweeterhead knows. Again, they can't take that kind of hit. There's just no way. So again, like the stuff that Tweeterhead has, the stuff that Sideshow has, the stuff that Iron Studios has, the stuff that PCS has, all of the North America, South America companies, they have product right now that are being manufactured in China. They're going to have to pause. They're going to have to sit on all of that stuff. So all of that stuff that's currently there being produced, that stuff's not coming to the United States anytime soon.
It's not a solution, but do you think they would fudge the numbers on like the way bill that comes in? Because I remember receiving Prime 1 statues overseas and looking at the invoice and seeing like they would always put like, $600 when it was like a $1,500 statue.
So I'm glad you said that, because the $125 or the 125% tariff is on items $800 and higher. There is, I believe they said, and this was early this morning, so it might have changed, but I think they said 80% tariff on 800 or like $799 and lower. So technically, yes, if you said a statue is only worth $1, it would only be an 80% tariff right now versus the 125.
But Eric, in the situation you described, I don't think that's a fudge number. I think that they're putting
That's what their cost, right?
That's their cost. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, and that's what gets tariff, not our retail.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it might not be as bad as we think, because maybe the companies are making such a huge profit on these statues that a tariff on their cost won't be as prohibitive as a tariff on retail would be.
Yeah.
It's pretty scary.
Well, I thought that was how we got around the import fee, by doing the economy, because it shipped on the boat and then didn't actually get shipped with FedEx or UPS until it got to the port. So it kind of looked like it was being shipped domestically. And that's how we got around the import fee. How would that work? Let's say we bought a Prime 1 piece and chose economy shipping, where it was going to be on the boat. When would it?
I received a message from a custom company today that said using economy shipping will still protect you from tariffs.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's true of all companies, but from this particular custom company, he said you're good to go.
Right, because they're going to declare that the value is like $1 and throw it on a boat, and then once it gets to California, and then it ships, it's still like it's shipped domestically.
I mean, that's what when I ship people items internationally, I do that for them. This way they don't get hit with huge taxes. Like if I send somebody one of my statues and I know it's valued, I mean, the only difference is you would lose an insurance, but trying to get an insurance claim on anything is impossible anyway. So what does it matter? But if I ship somebody my statue and I know it's $1,200 on the, the custom sheet, I always just put like $500 or something. This way they're not paying so many, fees and taxes. And
well, that's how it's done on eBay. Like if you see something that's made in China, they'll say free shipping. You're like, well, how do you do that? But then when you contact them, they'll say, listen, we could do the expensive shipping, or we could do the cheap shipping. But if something happens, it's on you.
Yeah.
Chris and Logan, Todd at Spec said he was going to pay the tariff increases for placed orders. He might be able to for a little while, but you can't sustain that.
I think we should need to start smuggling statues.
He's a one-guy operation, that has a few employees. It's just he cannot. These smaller companies cannot sustain it.
Yeah, no, he said as much. He said he'll pay for what's on order now, but he can't promise about the future, and will keep us apprised.
It's going to be like
he got this news on his birthday, so I just want to wish Todd a happy birthday, by the way, because that's just how sucky to get that kind of news.
It's going to be like the drug market. We're going to be secretly flying statues overseas without anybody detecting us.
There's going to be some of that
go underground. I mean, I know we don't talk about customs here, but
we'll start a black market.
It just might go that route.
I think you're right. I think, again, we've talked about eBay, we've talked about underground, we've talked about customs, we talked about 3D printing. A lot of that stuff's absolutely incredible. A lot of talent in those fields.
And I do think that is feasible to do in the U.S. I mean, I know you guys are like thinking it's going to be like 5 times more to hire U.S. painters, and I don't know. I don't think it would be that high. I mean, if you compare it to what these tariff increases might be, it might somewhat equal out. You never know. So we'll see.
But how is Tweeterhead going to build a factory? How is PCS or
they might just
going to build a factory?
I can guarantee 1,000,000%, or I'll sell my entire collection, that there is no way in hell that that'll ever happen.
No way in hell.
No way in hell.
They will not build factories. They cannot build factories. They cannot pay the labor. It just cannot be done. And it sucks. And I wish it could be completely opposite of that. But I have been told point blank that these companies cannot and will not do that because they cannot survive.
Even if it saves them $20,000 on a container, saves them who knows what they're overcharging anyway to begin with over in China.
Well, you got to think about too, Eric, is our eco laws. Our eco laws over here are way different than over in China. You know what I'm saying? As far as the paints and all that stuff, you know, and then, you know, like workforce and all, but just our environmental laws would keep an American factory alive.
JWR says it would be higher. Americans won't work for lower rates like overseas. Plus, they will unionize and strike to make more money like UPS and FedEx do. Very valid points.
Yep.
Even just the money, I mean, literally to construct a factory, way out of range for these smaller companies.
Well, I think his plan is to build up the economy, and in return, I would hope, you know, wages, you know, people's salaries would go up in return, but I don't know.
And that's the thing is like there are decent and good ideas behind a lot of this. Whether it works, that is going to be the test. And I think it's going to be at the expense of a lot of people for a long time.
Yeah.
Yes, things might get better eventually. And again, I think that's truly what this is all about, is to try to get things better, to tank the economy, to tank the dollar, and then rebuild from there. However, there's just going to be a lot of residual damage.
Yeah.
And I think our hobby specifically is really going to take a brunt of that. And that's because nobody in the big picture cares about collectibles.
Yep.
We do, because that's our passion. But the government, they could give 2 shits about it, right? They're going to care about electronics. They're going to care about cars, manufacturing, steel. They're going to care about that stuff. What China's going to care about is the agricultural aspects that come from here. You know, I live in Kansas. A big giant chunk goes overseas to feed the people. There's a billion jillion people in China. They need the food. They rely on some of that. So that will hurt them. So again, it's never a good thing. Right now. Hopefully in the long run, it maybe benefits people. I'm hoping. Again, I'm always optimistic to try to think, okay, hopefully this thing will be positive in the long run. But I think for a long time, it's going to be a big hurt. And again, I don't see factories being made in the United States to produce toys. I just don't think the labor costs would, and even if they did, who's going to pay, you know, let's say $300 for a G.I. Joe action figure?
Nope.
Nobody.
Well, I can tell you this from experience. My family's a bunch of builders. That's what we do. They could build a factory, and I could say, hey, Chad at Tweeterhead, here's the keys. Don't worry about paying rent no time soon. Just take care of the people and all the environmental costs, that he still couldn't do it. I mean, it's just all the environmental and everything, and paying the labor and everything. Even if he had a factory given to him, he still couldn't do it.
I just have to give a quick shout out. For the first time ever, my sister-in-law Emily is saying hi on the channel. So hi, Emily. I hope you're doing well. Glad you got the ticket thing to work out earlier. We're talking about tariffs. We're talking about how tariffs are potentially destroying this hobby, destroying stuff coming in the United States. We are trying to make collecting grail again. I like that. That's very well said. But it is one of those things that we could probably talk for hours. We've talked to an hour and 9 minutes, and I want to thank 251 people watching. Please hit the like button, guys. That does help us tremendously here on the channel. So I can't thank you guys enough for hearing us ramble about this stuff for an hour.
How much do you think a pair of Air Jordans would cost if they were made in the United States?
Well, it's just insane.
I think the sneakers are made in China, but the apparel's all made in like Honduras or something like that.
Right. I mean, I mentioned the iPhone. An iPhone would cost $3,500 just to produce here in the United States if the factory was here. So you think of one iPhone, how much would Apple jack up the price on top of that $3,500 just to make it?
At least.
But also look at how the people being treated that are making your sneakers. It's usually like child labor. So you feel good about
that.
We've all heard those things, but
you got to think, it goes both ways.
Yeah,
but it's actually Jack. Sorry, hi, Jack.
It's the only way, though. If you want these things, it's it.
It's just the idea again. The idea of having factories and making our own stuff and paying our own workers, like all of that, is great. But in reality, in a real world situation, it's not going to happen right now. It might happen slowly over time. I think there is manufacturing that wants to be here. I know they're looking at a lot of like old factories and trying to go back in to see if they're even stable enough to go back in and put people back to work. And I'm all for that. But it is one of those things where it's like, it's rough,
Mm-hmm.
It's rough. Anything else? I mean, again, we could talk for a long time. Anything else you guys want to say? Or have we beat the drum dry?
To be continued. See what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah. And again, I want everyone to be successful. I want the companies to be successful. I want fans and consumers to be happy with their product and have a fair product. I think we haven't had fair prices for a really long time. So I am glad to see that some companies are maybe willing to do a little bit of wiggle room. I think some of the larger companies are going to be able to do that. I think some of the smaller companies are absolutely not and are going to fold. Unless Matt is right and it doesn't last that long. It is a shorter period of time, which again, I don't know. We have two really strong-headed people.
Have you ever met do you know who our president is?
Right. And that's the thing is like, I just don't see either one of them bucking. Eventually they will have to,
right?
But I don't see it anytime soon.
Yeah, well, exactly. So it's not going to happen in 2 weeks. So what happens if it happens in a year from now? Do these companies, are they still around?
Time will tell.
Brad's comment is pretty good right here.
Trump is out 3 years and free market will be open again. And anyone who built and invested into a factory will be ruined because it'll just go overseas again.
Yeah, that's the issue.
But the problem, I mean, I've even heard, they've even asked Trump if he's going to try to run again. And he's like, well, we're looking into it. It's like, I don't know. We live in bizarro world right now. And so who knows? And the thing is, if you watch the news, which I try to avoid, but if you watch the news, every day it changes. Every day there's something completely different. Yep. So next time we're talking about this show, it might be something completely different. Tariffs might be at 1,000%, or they might have worked it out. Or, octopus might invade the planet, or, who knows what's aliens are going to come down. I don't know. That's the kind of bizarro world we live in. But all I can say is, like we always say on the channel, collect what you love, enjoy what you have, and be patient. Yep. I think that's going to be the real key. And we've talked about patience a lot, but I think this is going to be the real test of patience until they figure all this out. I think the companies are absolutely going to be put on pause. I think production is going to be put on pause. I think stuff's not going to be coming to the United States, at least in the moment. I think there are going to be companies that ask you to spend more and pay more for what you've already paid for. And it's going to be up to the consumer to say yay or nay. That is where we're at. I don't know if I can sum it up any better, but I think that's where we're at. And I think we just have to be patient and see how it all plays out. Hey guys, thank you so very much for watching today. And if you're new here, please hit the subscribe button right here on the screen and check out these two awesome videos. I think you're going to love them. And also please join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I would love to have you join in all the fun. Thank you guys so very much for watching. See you in the Batcave.